Hi friends, welcome to the Share, Invite, Proclaim channel. My name is Judy. How can my brother's advice, warnings, and encouragement help me with my problems? Well, whenever I have a serious problem, I call my brother. We're from the same generation, close in age. We've experienced many of the same things in a small university town. And we've faced similar experiences, so I call him. On occasion, I might call my sisters, but mostly my brother. But is there any other brother that I can turn to for advice? Well, yes, there's the brother of Jesus. I use several verses every day from this short letter to believers in Jesus Christ. Verses that I cling to from this short letter is chapter 4, verse 7. Submit therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. This is my nighttime prayer for me and my family. Also, frequently I use James 1:5 that says, but if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all mankind generously and without reproach. That means disapproval or disappointment, and it will be given to him. I certainly need wisdom. Also, on many occasions, I need James 3, the first 12 verses that talks about the tongue. Many times I speak without thinking, or I need to just keep quiet out of somebody else's business. I miss that balance between when to speak and when to keep quiet. Also, I frequent James 1, verse 22 that says, be doers of the word, not just hearers only. My pastor says that we don't necessarily need one more Bible study, but to do what it says. Now, he's not bad-mouthing Bible study. He's just saying, do what the Bible study says. Put the teaching into practice. I need more of a balance between sit and hear to sit and do. I like the quote in my New American Standard Bible that is in the introduction to James. It says, devoid of all apology. It's the 108 verses that contain 54 commands, and I hope to find all 54. Now, James wrote this short letter to help those who misunderstood Paul's teaching that we're saved by faith alone. Well, believers began ignoring the needs of the poor or the widows or the helpless. They stopped doing those things that they saw Jesus do. James tried to balance this and right the misunderstanding of persons by proclaiming that a believer demonstrates their faith by their works. Jesus said, you will know them by their fruits or their works. So they're both important. James wrote a series of statements giving advice, warnings, and encouragement. So I'll use that as the outline given by my New Testament professor at Southern Seminary, Dr. James Blevins. Now, if you need advice on trials, wisdom, wealth, temptations, and good gifts in true religion, we'll look at that in chapter 1. If you need warnings, things that trip us up or stall us or cause us to retreat, things like partiality or sterile faith or controlling the tongue or false wisdom or human frailty and wealthy oppressors, that's in chapters 2 through 5. And also in chapter 5, encouragement. Encouragement for the oppressed, honest speech, prayer, and words for the backslider. And I've got to do a discussion on what is a backslider. If I had to choose one statement as a theme for James, it would be this in James 1:22. Be doers of the word, not hearers only. If the date of the writing of this letter is AD 62, then James wrote before any of the Gospels were written. So he had to use the sayings of Jesus. That would be sayings that the disciples wrote down in a document so that they would remember what Jesus said. James would have to use this document and his knowledge of Paul's writings and the Old Testament as sources of information, but especially the wisdom of God. Well, who was James, the brother of Jesus? Well, he became a believer after Jesus rose from the grave and ascended to heaven. Maybe he was part of the 120 who received the Holy Spirit in Jerusalem, because he became the pastor of the Christian church in Jerusalem. I wonder where it was located. He was a born-again Jewish Christian. He met with Paul in the Jerusalem church. James spoke to some of the Pharisees in the Jerusalem church who were saying that believing Gentiles had to be circumcised in order to be saved. This caused a great debate in the church. Acts 15, Luke tells us. Peter spoke up and testified that God gave the believing Gentiles the same Holy Spirit that he did the Jewish Christians. He made no distinction between believing Jews and believing Gentiles, and that they are saved by faith and God's grace, not circumcision. Then Barnabas and Paul told the congregation the signs and the wonders that God did through them in the first missionary journey. James told the congregation that the prophets, mostly Amos and Isaiah, told the congregation that the Gentiles are called by God to rebuild the faith and to seek the Lord. So James had to be fluent in the Old Testament scriptures. After Paul's third missionary journey, about AD 57 or so, he went to Jerusalem and spoke to James. He spoke to James and the elders to tell them what God had done for the Gentiles through their ministry, Acts 21. James was martyred about AD 62 by Herod in Jerusalem, and this pleased the Jews in Jerusalem. His letter is not addressed to one specific church, but to churches in general, because he said in the opening, to the 12 tribes who are dispersed abroad, Jewish Christians, first-generation Christians. First-generation Christians were Jewish, and they accepted Jesus as their Messiah. Well, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a wonderful journey through these 3 short chapters of encouragement, warnings, and advice. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.